There's a specific moment that happens twice a month, or maybe once, depending on how you're paid, where you check your banking app and see a number that's larger than it was yesterday. Your paycheck just landed. And for about 30 seconds, you feel this quiet sense of possibility. Like maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time you'll actually save something. Maybe this time you won't get to the end of the month wondering where it all went. But then you start thinking about bills, about that thing you've been meaning to buy, about how you deserve something nice because work was hard this week. And before you've even consciously decided anything, the money is already spoken for in your mind. My name is Anderson, and I've spent years observing the gap between people who build wealth and people who just process paychecks. And here's what I've learned. The difference isn't how much they earn, it's what they do in the first 48 hours after they get paid. Most people think the problem is income. If I just made more money, everything would be easier. But I've watched people earning $150,000 a year, live paycheck to paycheck, and I've watched people earning $45,000 build six-figure net worths in a decade. The variable isn't the paycheck, it's the routine that happens immediately after. There's a window, a brief period between when money arrives and when it disappears, where your financial future is decided. And most people let that window close without ever realizing it was open. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what happens in that window, and how a simple routine, repeated consistently, separates people who feel like they're drowning from people who feel like they're designing something. Let's start with what most people actually do when they get paid. They don't do anything, not consciously anyway. The money hits their account, they glance at it, they feel a small sense of relief, okay, I can cover rent this month, and then they go back to whatever they were doing, Netflix, work, scrolling. Over the next few days, money starts leaving, automatically in some cases, rent, car payment, insurance, manually in others, groceries, gas, that thing they ordered online last week and forgot about. By day 10, the balance is noticeably smaller. By day 20, they're wondering if they can afford to go out this weekend. By day 28, they're checking their account obsessively, mentally calculating how many days until the next paycheck, and then it arrives again. Relief, repeat. This isn't a budgeting problem, it's a system problem, or rather, it's the absence of a system. Without a routine, your paycheck isn't a tool. It's just a temporary increase in your checking account balance before it drains back down to some baseline you never consciously chose. But here's what changes everything. If you implement a routine, a specific sequence of actions that happens every single time you get paid, you transform that paycheck from a fleeting moment of relief into a wealth-building mechanism. Not because the routine is complicated, but because it removes decision fatigue, eliminates willpower dependency, and turns intention into automation. Here's how the routine works. And it starts the moment your paycheck clears. Step 1. Wait exactly 1 business day. Don't touch anything. Don't transfer anything. Just let the deposit fully process. This sounds overly cautious, but here's why it matters. Banks occasionally reverse deposits, holds can delay availability, and acting too quickly can trigger overdraft fees if something goes wrong. 1 day of patience protects you from that chaos. But more importantly, it gives you a psychological buffer. It forces you to be intentional rather than reactive. You're not scrambling to move money around the second it arrives. You're operating from a place of calm control. On day 2, 24 hours after the deposit, you execute the routine, all at once, in sequence. This is critical. You don't do it piecemeal over the week. You don't wait until you have time. You do it immediately before any discretionary spending happens. Because once you start spending, the mental accounting gets messy. You start telling yourself stories about what you can afford based on what's left rather than what's actually allocated. The routine is designed to make those allocations before your brain has a chance to negotiate. Here's the sequence. First transfer, fixed costs, rent or mortgage, insurance, loan minimums, anything that's non-negotiable and recurring. These amounts move into a designated account or stay in checking whatever system you're using, but they're mentally or literally separated from discretionary funds. The key is knowing this number exactly, not approximately, not around $2,300, exactly $2,347 or whatever it is for you. Most people have a vague sense of their fixed costs, but vague doesn't work because vague lets you borrow from the future. I think I need $2,000 for bills, so I can probably spend $300 on this, except your bills are actually $2,400 and now you're short. Precision eliminates negotiation. When you know the exact number, there's no gray area. That money is spoken for. Done. Second transfer. Emergency buffer. This is not your full emergency fund. We'll get to that. This is a smaller buffer, maybe $200 to $500, that covers the mini emergencies that happen between paychecks. The parking ticket, the prescription, the thing you forgot to budget for. Without this buffer, those small unexpected expenses force you into debt or derail your entire plan. With it, they're annoying but manageable. This buffer sits in savings and accumulates until it hits about $2,000, at which point you maintain it there and redirect future contributions elsewhere. But until you hit that threshold, it gets funded every single paycheck without exception. Third transfer, actual emergency fund. This is the 6-month expenses, full-blown safety net, the thing that keeps you employed by choice rather than desperation. If your monthly fixed costs are $2,500, you're building toward $15,000. That sounds overwhelming, so you don't think about the target. You think about the contribution. Every paycheck, a fixed amount goes toward this goal, maybe $150, maybe $400, depending on your income and other priorities. It doesn't matter how long it takes. What matters is that it's automatic and consistent. Because here's the thing about emergency funds. They don't just protect you financially. They change how you think. When you know you have 6 months of runway, you stop making decisions from fear. You stop tolerating bad jobs because you're terrified of the gap. You stop saying yes to things you don't want because you're worried about burning bridges. The emergency fund is freedom in a savings account. Once those foundations are set, the next layer is where wealth actually gets built, retirement contributions. If your employer offers matching, this is non-negotiable. Every paycheck, you contribute enough to capture the full match. Not when you can afford it. Not once other things are handled. Every single time, automatically. This is the only guaranteed 100% return you'll ever get. If your employer matches 50% up to 6% of your salary and you earn $55,000, contributing $3,300 annually gets you an additional $1,650 from your employer. That's $1,650 you didn't have to work for. You just had to participate. Beyond the match, you're aiming for about 15% of gross income going toward retirement. That includes the employer match. So if they're giving you 3%, you contribute 12%. If they're giving you 5%, you contribute 10%. This sounds like a lot, and maybe it is if you're just starting out. But here's the thing, you build toward it. You don't have to hit 15% on your first paycheck. You start at 8%, then increase by 1% every 6 months until you reach your target. The increases are small enough that you barely notice, but over 2 or 3 years, you've transformed your savings rate without feeling like you're sacrificing. If you're carrying high-interest debt, anything above 8%, part of your routine includes an extra payment beyond minimums. Not a huge amount. Not something that makes your life miserable, but something even $50 extra per paycheck compounds into thousands of dollars saved in interest over time. The strategy is simple. List your debts by interest rate, pay minimums on everything, then take whatever extra you've allocated for debt and throw it at the highest rate. This isn't exciting. It doesn't feel like progress at first because the balances decrease slowly, but the math is undeniable. Every dollar toward high interest debt is a guaranteed return equal to that interest rate. Paying off 22% credit card debt is mathematically equivalent to earning 22% on an investment, and no stock or real estate investment offers guaranteed 22% returns. So you do it every paycheck, methodically, until it's gone. After all of that, fixed costs, buffers, emergency fund, retirement, debt, whatever's left is yours to spend without guilt. This is the key insight most people miss. Guilt-free spending requires structure everywhere else. When you know your foundations are handled, spending money on things you enjoy stops feeling reckless. It stops being this anxious calculation of, can I afford this? And becomes, I've already taken care of everything that matters, so yes. But here's the trap. Most people reverse the order. They spend first, feel guilty, then try to save or invest whatever's left, which is usually nothing. The routine flips that. You handle the important stuff immediately, automatically, without negotiation. Then you spend what remains without stress. Now, here's where most people fail. They understand the routine intellectually, but rely on willpower to execute it. That doesn't work. Willpower is finite. You might follow the routine for 2 months, then have a stressful week and skip it, then convince yourself you'll catch up later, and suddenly you're back to financial chaos. The solution is automation. You set up automatic transfers that execute on a specific schedule the day after your paycheck clears, or 2 days after, whatever works for your bank's processing time. Emergency fund contribution, automatic. Retirement, automatic. Extra debt payment, automatic. You set it up once, and then it just happens. Every paycheck, without fail, without decision fatigue, without the possibility of talking yourself out of it because you saw something you wanted. Automation removes you from the equation, which sounds impersonal, but it's actually liberating because you're not fighting yourself every 2 weeks. You're just watching the system work. Here's something nobody warns you about. Raises can destroy your progress if you're not careful. You get a 10% raise. You feel like you've leveled up. And instead of adjusting your routine to save or invest that extra income, you adjust your lifestyle to spend it. Bigger apartment, nicer car, more frequent dining out, and suddenly your new, higher income disappears just as fast as your old income did. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's why people making $120,000 often feel just as broke as they did making $60,000. The routine prevents this. When you get a raise, you recalculate your allocations, you increase your retirement contribution by 2%. You add $100 to your emergency fund contribution. You throw more at debt if you're still carrying any. You allow yourself some lifestyle improvement, maybe 30% of the raise, but you capture the rest for future you. This is how wealth actually builds, not from one big windfall, but from consistently capturing incremental income increases before they get absorbed into spending. Following this routine transforms something deeper than your bank balance. It transforms your identity. You stop being someone who isn't good with money. You stop being someone who lives paycheck to paycheck. You become someone who has a system, someone who's in control. And that identity shift changes how you make decisions everywhere else. You negotiate harder for raises because you know exactly what an extra $5,000 annually would do across your allocations. You turn down purchases that don't align with your priorities, not because you can't afford them, but because you're building something more important. You stop feeling guilty about spending money you've allocated for spending. You stop feeling anxious about unexpected expenses because you have buffers. You stop feeling trapped by your job because you're building runway. This isn't about becoming obsessed with money. It's about making money irrelevant, creating enough structure and stability that you stop thinking about it constantly. Let's run the math on what this routine actually creates over time. Say you earn $55,000 annually. After taxes, that's about $3,600 per month or $1,800 per paycheck. Your routine allocates $1,200 for fixed costs, $100 for emergency buffer, $200 for full emergency fund, $200 for retirement, capturing employer match, and contributing toward 15%, $150 extra toward debt. That's $1,850 allocated, which means you're temporarily spending slightly more than you earn because you're aggressively building foundations. But here's what happens. After 18 months, your emergency fund is fully funded. That $200 per paycheck now redirects to retirement or debt. After another year, your debt is eliminated. Now that $150 redirects too. Suddenly, you're investing $550 per paycheck, $13,200 annually, without changing your income. At 8% average returns over 25 years, that's $973,000. Same paycheck, same lifestyle, different routine, and the difference is 7 figures. Here's what I want you to understand. This routine won't make you feel rich tomorrow. It won't give you immediate gratification. It won't impress anyone at dinner parties, but it will change everything. Slowly. Inevitably. You won't notice it day to day, but you'll notice it when your car needs $1,200 in repairs and you're annoyed, not panicked. You'll notice it when your company announces layoffs and you're concerned, not terrified. You'll notice it when you're 45 and realize you could retire at 55 if you wanted to. The routine is boring, that's the point. Boring is reliable, boring compounds, and wealth isn't built through exciting decisions. It's built through boring ones, repeated consistently until they're not decisions anymore, they're just what you do. So here's the challenge this week: when your paycheck hits, execute the routine, all of it, in sequence within 48 hours. Set up the automation, calculate the allocations, remove yourself from the equation, and then do it again next time, and the time after that, because the person who does this 20 times isn't the same person who started. There's someone different, someone who doesn't wonder where the money went, someone who knows, and that person builds wealth. Not loudly, not dramatically, just inevitably